Hi, everyone. This is Amanda Mills, and we've got Larry Turnley with me. I'm an astrologer.
Hi,
And
everyone.
Oh, yeah. And Larry is a numerologist. And this is the fourth one in our series, isn't it? We've done part
Correct.
1, 2, 3. This is 4. And we're covering astrology versus numerology. And in this one, we're going to cover Capricorn, uh, Aquarius, and Pisces. And the numbers that correlate with that, Larry, that you said are
10, 11, and 12,
so
which
Capricorn
is a
being,
10, a 10, 1, an 11, 2,
yeah.
and a 12, 3. Yep.
So when we're saying that, would you say a Capricorn is like a 10 or like a 1?
Uh, I think, like what we've been doing is like, a blueprint of astrology and a blueprint of
Yes.
numerology. It doesn't actually mean that they're similar or the same. It's
Yes.
just another aspect that you can use to overlay or read into. Sometimes, we were talking about Scorpio and eights last week.
Yes.
Scorpio is a water sign, which is emotional and relationships, and eights is emotional and relationships as well. So they correlate, but
Right.
not all of
Always they correlate. Yes.
that doesn't actually do it. It just brings up another aspect that
Yeah.
that they will use. Yeah. Yeah.
So from my perspective, when we're talking about Capricorns, I find, Capricorns are definitely the goat going to the top of the mountain. One thing I've always observed about Capricorns is if you go and look at people that are often at the top of their field, they're usually Capricorns. A lot of
Okay.
actors are
Okay.
Capricorns. Yeah. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I read a mathematics book about and it was based in Sweden, and they did it on astrology, and they said that the highest achieving sign in Sweden was Gemini's.
Oh, really? Well, I've heard
Yeah,
that with the age of Aquarius, it's the most amount of millionaires or billionaires or what do you want to call it,
yeah,
actually Aquariuses, which makes sense being age of Aquarius.
yeah,
That's the new trend.
yeah,
It's usually the Aquariuses.
yeah,
But I find just that wanting to get to the top of their game or to get to the top of their craft. I find
yeah,
your Kevin Costner's is a Capricorn, your someone like Brad Pitt's and a Sagittarius, but he's a lot. If you look at his chart, it's so Capricorn.
yeah.
And interesting
Okay,
enough, he's
okay.
into architecture as well, so
Yeah. Oh, there
that's
you
very
go.
Capricorn. Yeah, so you often find, are they interested in rock climbing? I've met a lot of Capricorns that are, or really love that
Wow.
sort of, yeah, love that sort of
Climbing
hiking.
the mountain.
Yes, climbing the mountain. But I
Yeah.
do find they tend to try and climb. They've set a high benchmark for themselves, and they're like
Mm.
the goat trying to get to the top.
Oh,
So
well, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So that's
That's
one thing I've
interesting.
noticed.
So
Um,
they're cardinal signs, so they're very motivated for themselves.
Yes, they are. And the opposite to Cancer, in the horoscope wheel. I find the thing with Capricorns is that they almost need a reminder. So maybe they need a partner like this that can remind them life is not that serious and you've got to go enjoy your childlike side.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah,
can be a bit too serious, like everything has to be done
yeah.
for work or
It's
all
isn't
work, no
it
play.
isn't it interesting how in the outer world they can be quite high achieving or hard
Yeah.
workers, that earth hard work, but at home they can be self-sacrificing.
I never noticed that about Capricorns until you sort of brought that up,
Yes,
but they can be.
yes,
So is
yes,
that about giving their
yes.
power away? Do you think they give their power away
At home, yes,
at
because they've
home?
got a
Okay.
yeah, because January is a 1 month, and the month is the relationship number.
Ah,
So most of them are born in the first,
yep.
and that is self-sacrifice. So they can give their power away to their partner as a way of how I love you. Yeah,
That's really interesting. Yeah, no, the
yeah,
Capricorns I do know, those with a lot of Capricorn in their chart do tend to be almost workaholics, I'd call them. Like they,
yeah. But
even
the
if it,
same thing,
yeah,
they can be dominating at work and then get dominated at home.
very interesting, very interesting.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so that's
yeah,
all those lessons. So
yeah.
a Capricorn and a one, once again, we've already covered one, but going back to it's like, it's
A
the 10th
10-1.
house, 10th
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
Um,
So a 10-1, it brings in the zero. which
Yes,
can
right.
bring in frustration.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they can feel like a mouse on a wheel, running a lot
Ah,
without getting anywhere.
I felt like that before in life, I must admit. It's
Yeah,
an
well,
awful
that's,
feeling.
it can be an experience of the zero, which just emphasizes that number,
Right.
and it means you've got to choose a different way a lot of the
Yes.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Okay.
Um, well, that's very interesting. So it's like because it's the 10th house in astrology, and the 10th house is usually a career. So when you look at
Yep,
someone's chart, if they've got planets in that 10th house, often it symbolizes father. And it
yep,
also can show someone that's, if you had sun in there, I would think even maybe someone that's going to be really out there or following in their father's footsteps
yep.
potentially. I
Well,
know
so,
when I
isn't
studied astrology, that was our exam test. We just had the chart and we didn't know
yeah,
who they were. And I remember it was
yeah,
George W. Bush, and he had sun in the 10th house. And I remember it because it was like an exam I had to do.
ah,
Yeah, so that was
and
really,
isn't Capricorn ruled by Saturn?
yes. And Saturn is all about father. Um,
Father figure, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I often
yeah,
find people that, that have like even Saturn in their 7th house. I've noticed this in a few clients. That is an indication of almost attracting their father in relationships, because I've asked that a
yeah,
couple of times and they're like,
yeah,
they're
correct,
exactly like my father.
yeah.
So yeah.
And is Saturn about doing the right thing?
Saturn is almost like, yeah, it's like that father, that really sort of stern, strict father or
Solid.
authority figure, so whether it's a
Yep,
father or a teacher or the
yep,
government or those
yep.
sorts of things, that sort of says if you don't do the right thing, there is going to be a consequence.
Consequence, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and at the
yeah.
moment, what's really interesting is we have Saturn in Pisces.
Yes,
Yeah, so and actually it's in retrograde. Pretty sure
yeah,
it's retrograde, or I'm not sure if it will be
yeah,
when you watch this or someone watches it. But
yeah.
that's been the interesting thing. It's almost like, go back and look at what you haven't done properly,
Yes, correct. Yeah,
so you can correct
yeah.
that as you move forward. Um,
Saturn's energy is like clearing out everything you're not doing
yeah,
where you're not doing the right thing, and
yes,
straightening up to, you know, do the right thing. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
By yourself sometimes even.
Yes, that's
Yes,
right.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
really interesting because when you look at people going through their Saturn return, it's like it's really that age of maturity, and they all of a sudden might,
yeah,
which happens around 27 and a half approximately,
yeah,
happens again in your late 50s, around 57 to
yeah,
58. I
yeah,
see people
yeah,
going through their
yeah,
second Saturn return. And it's
yeah,
interesting when you speak to them, it's like they might have had kids and the kids are really off doing their own thing now, they're free,
yeah,
or they
yeah,
might have, one person I remember I did their chart and they'd actually bought a property for their business and it was going to be paid off by that. It was about to be
yeah,
paid off. So it was like that Saturn return sort of, I've got some freedom here coming
yeah.
in. Or, yeah, big sort of change, or it could be a really big responsibility either in your life or lifting in your life,
So,
etc.
is their work their status sort of thing?
I find with Capricorns, yes, so much. I find that
Yeah, yeah,
they do take things pretty serious and work. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
probably putting work first, almost
yeah, yeah,
kind of quality.
yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Do
They
you,
often need to remember, like, go and smell the roses kind of attitude, or go and do something fun for no reason.
with that 10-1, I often find they can
Ah,
personalize quite a lot. Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
what do you mean by that? How do they personalize?
They can react to criticism or constructive criticism personally,
Yes,
and react to that.
right.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
very interesting.
mm,
So that sort of sums up probably Capricorn, and we're sort of discussing in this one the 10-1 or a 1 again, but it's
yeah,
10 and what a
yeah,
10 is. So the next
yeah,
one would be Aquarius, interesting sign. It's and we're talking about the ruler of the 11th house.
yeah,
But you're saying it could be also, well, we're talking about master number 11.
yeah. 11 twos. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, and it sort of brings in a whole spiritual awareness there.
Yes.
From above the line point of view, they are the spiritual messenger. So they have this connection to other worlds.
Yes.
And, sometimes you mightn't see it in it because you see the two ones and they're very driven and ambitious. So they can
Yes.
be right in the 3D world. But underneath that, they always have this other side to them where they might be an empath or a clairvoyant or
Yes.
something, where they have this natural connection to other world,
Yeah,
or spirit world.
I've noticed it a
Yeah,
lot with your 11s.
yeah,
The other thing is like Aquarius. Well, the 11th house is the house of community, um,
yes,
the collective as such. So
yeah,
what the
yeah,
collective is going through.
yes, yep,
Aquariuses to me are really that black sheep, and they're meant to
yeah,
be that way, so that rebel
yeah,
rouser. They're the maverick. They're the ones that are doing things differently. But they're meant to be, because we're not all meant to be like going like sheep blindly going the same way. So you do need those
yeah,
people that question things, that say,
yeah.
"Hey, not sure about this." I think you know a bit about Aquariuses, I assume.
Well, they're an air sign,
Air
so
sign, but a fixed
that
sign.
yes, but yeah, so they can be a little bit stubborn, but I mean, they're known for being a little bit quirky too. The
Oh,
old
very much
Aquarius,
quirky.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Like
yeah,
I
into
see
their mysticism, yeah,
mysticism, definitely, because
yeah,
Aquarius, like,
yeah,
it definitely rules all that sort of astrology. Aquarius,
yes,
it's
yeah,
very much an
that's right.
astrology kind of.
Well, my numerology teacher was an Aquarian.
Right. Well, it reminds me of like the protesters that are out in
Yes,
force going, we don't agree with this, and it's like
yeah,
getting together a group and
yeah,
actually with a mission of like,
expressing that, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
that is to me
yeah.
a very Aquarius kind of quality, whether they're doing that or not.
And
But yeah.
11 twos and master numbers have this higher calling to a higher cause. So,
Ah,
22 fours are more about working for a spiritual base or foundation or a
yeah.
cause, whereas 11 twos, they naturally attract people to them,
Right.
so they're very good at one-on-one with people
Mhm.
emotionally, and they attract people because people want to talk to them and release by talking to them and getting out, so they can get a lot of people dumping on them,
Right.
and
Interesting.
need to learn about their own energy so that
Yeah.
doesn't happen, so they
Right.
don't collect it. They transmute it instead of collecting it.
How can people protect them, just while you've mentioned that, if they are an 11 or they are
Well, it's
how can they protect their energy?
well, part of the 11 twos is they can go into poor me, or I feel sorry for myself,
Yeah.
and that can convert to, oh, I feel sorry for people, so I'll listen to their poor me stories or their stories of their film and their world. So as soon as you've 11 twos feel sorry for someone, they lose their energy to them. Bang,
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if they come from a perception that anything that we've created in our film and our outer world is in our spiritual balance. It's, we might be going through pain and suffering, but we're going through a strengthening exercise. We're always in balance to turn in and find the best version of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so we don't have to feel sorry for people, because we all put ourselves through pain and suffering to learn the hard way sometimes,
Yeah. That's right.
But
Yeah.
it's learning to look at people and not feel sorry for them, but see that their world is in balance. They're just learning things the hard way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that way we don't lose our energy. We don't give our power away to that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely find, 11th house, like I said to you, someone's got like sun in the 11th house. I almost think, that could be a sign of fame as well. It's like, it's almost, they're like,
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
identity is going to shine out in the collective, or they could have a bit of
Yeah.
influence in the collective.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly people that have got some type of, may do something that's sort of going to help in the collective. I
Correct.
always find
Yeah.
that
Correct.
interesting about Aquarius, is how you say that fixed sign, because they're very dogmatic sometimes. So I find
Yes.
that really
Yes.
interesting. It
Yes.
never used to match, or Jill, I used to think they wouldn't be like that, but they're actually quite fixed, quite almost like a Taurus, can be very stubborn in their way of,
And it's
thinking.
really interesting. The 11-2 can compared to a straight two. A straight two is very gathering and, you know, and plays into people and very nice and all that. And 11 twos have that quality, but because they've got the 2 1s behind that two, they can come out and bite you. And with that male energy of the 2 1s, and people never see it coming because they're soft up front, but they actually got a bite behind them. Aquarians can be a bit like that.
Yes. Well, in that sense,
they do have a bite.
Yeah. I find they, you know, they're questioning things. Like I remember studying marketing, and it's always like that. You could always bet it was an Aquarian in the class who would start questioning the teacher on the facts, the information and stuff like that, which, you know, may be unselling for everyone, but it's like someone has to question things. Someone has to be brave and stand forward and say, are we meant to be doing this? Is that correct? Or questioning sort of things. So that's definitely the energy of Aquarius to me. It's like the
and I look at the, you know, the biggest signs, like we're talking today, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. From a numerology perspective, they're big picture.
Yes,
they come from a bigger perspective. So they're always looking at things from a bigger perspective of how it affects the world and the people around us. You know, whereas Aries, Taurus, Gemini, they're always thinking about how it affects them personally. Correct. You know, so Capricorns, Aquarians, and Pisces are always coming from this big picture perception.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Aquarius is ruled by the planet Uranus, which has actually been in Taurus for a little bit, and it's been really upsetting all of our monetary things here on Earth. You know, we've seen the rise of things like cryptocurrency, and definitely the energy of Aquarius and the planet Uranus is definitely, and we're in. Pluto is going to go back eventually into for about 20 years, I think, in collectively in Aquarius. And that's really, to me, where you see the rise of all the AI stuff, robots. It's very you know, futuristic.
But also it's sort of like really that death and regeneration of looking at things from a higher perspective. Definitely Pluto going into Aquarian. It's really taking us down a whole different world. It's creating a new world, you know, a different way of being.
That's correct. So we'll move on to sort of Pisces, and Pisces is a water sign, and it's the ruler of Pisces is a ruler of the 12th house, which is very much you know, dream-like state. I always find people that have got a lot of planets in their 12th house, it's almost like wanting to live in a cupboard because it's like, you know, they need to be that sort of, you know, it's like, you know, in that dream-like world. Actually, I also, my son's got Mercury in the 12th house, and I find it's like you can't sometimes get a straight answer out of him.
So when you say dream-like world, is that because Pisces is ruled by Neptune?
Yes.
It brings
so
in that.
Sort of, it can be a bit in the fantasy land. Overwhelming, yes. The reality stuff is overwhelming. You know, if you think of like Neptune, it's like that fog out at sea.
And overfeeling.
Sorry.
Overfeeling.
Yes, probably overfeeling. Probably a lot of stuff coming intuitively from once again the collective. Empath stuff, I'd say, big time. Any Pisces you'll find usually is, or someone that's got Pisces in their chart, they, you know, especially in those personal planets, they tend to be quite empathic. I feel like they go with the flow, but may not have their own boundaries.
Well, you know, with the 12-3, I call it like a hamburger with a lot, you know, because they've got the one energy, they've got the get up and go, they've got the 2 energy, they can gather people around their idea, they can come up with an idea, and then they've got the 3 that can communicate their idea and gather people around it. So that 12-3 is you know, it brings in this everyone, you know, they could they want to communicate to everyone. They're very big picture, you know, and they want to heal everyone, you know, it's always big picture,
Yeah. And
how,
Pisces are quite healing people. I mean, I know someone that
yeah,
had look, I know someone that had a lot of Pisces in their chart and their personal planets. Virtually everything was in Pisces. I think they had Virgo,
yeah,
Virgo, and it was like they tossed between maybe being on the drug side, which I do think Pisces can have those
yeah,
things,
yeah,
drugs,
yeah,
alcohol, too
yeah,
much watching TV, too
yeah,
much sleeping. It's just escapism, what I'm talking about. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
throwing yourself into escapism. Or
yeah,
on the other hand of that energy, and that's probably the shadow side of that energy, the other side of it is creativity,
yeah,
being an artist or healing. And that
yeah,
person I was
yeah,
talking about, they were really amazing at healing. They were
yeah.
virtually doing a form of Reiki kind of healing. Yeah.
And also, like, Pisces is the two fishes,
Yes.
and I've found quite a few Pisces are very driven to
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
achieve,
that's true. Yes.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So they can be artistic and
But
go
they're
down a
very driven
whole,
in the practical
yeah,
side as well.
but others I've seen are very driven in their chosen field of work to
Yeah.
achieve. There's almost like Gemini, the twins, the two fishes, you almost get two
The
sides
yin
to
and the yang.
Pisces. Yeah, yeah,
The yin and the
very
yang of
much
it.
so. Yeah,
Yes, and I must say I agree with that with Pisces. I mean, the thing is, like when you get your chart done, well, we're just talking about your sun sign. You may not, your sun sign might be Pisces, but you might have a lot of Capricorn in your chart because
yeah,
certain
yeah,
planets don't move far from the sun, as we know. So,
yeah,
you can often have your Venus or your Mercury or Mars
that's right.
in there. So that's quite common. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I suppose, we're going to look at it as an overview. You're going to take away some of the points that apply to you and some of them don't, because it really
yeah,
does depend on other aspects that you have in your chart. And that's
absolutely.
always the case.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've sort of got to, get a bit of a view of all your major aspects. And I suppose with astrology, it's sort of like your rising sign, your moon sign, your sun sign gives you a little bit more
Your basics,
detail of
doesn't it?
your overall. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
very
for
much your basics.
numerology, yeah, for numerology, it would be your ruling number, your day number, your month. Well, your day number is a personality, like your rising sign. Your month number is your relationship, how you relate in a relationship, and your year number is the relationship and environment that you had with your parents. So
Right,
they're the
yes.
four outer aspects.
Yeah,
And then with your name, underneath you get your soul urge. And
right,
the numbers, soul urge, persona, expression, and destiny, which tell you about your relationship to yourself.
right. Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll have to do a
yeah.
whole other episode on that.
Well, we can talk about different aspects, but I suppose it's just letting people know we're only talking about one
One.
particular aspect from both
Yes,
sides.
that's
Yes.
right. I always think
Yeah.
of astrology like if you just know your sun sign, it's like knowing one note in a
Little
piece of
aspect.
music.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
one,
Correct.
like you'd imagine a song with one note.
Yes.
You
I think that was part of the reason I went down the numerology path when I learned astrology. Just the houses, the planets, the
Yeah,
sun
so
size, the
much.
rising sun. I found that very overwhelming,
Yes.
trying to stitch that all together.
Yeah.
So many aspects. I really found that difficult. So for me, I found numerology very
Really simple.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
from that, because there wasn't as many aspects. That's the
No.
only reason. But they're both applicable blueprints,
Yes.
and really it comes down to each individual person what patterns we're going to choose to reflect, to look at
Yes.
ourselves with, even if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's right. Even if that's what you want to do. But I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
probably a
right.
really good
That's a
way to sum
choice.
up this
Yeah,
whole series now, what you've said.
yeah,
So I think we sort of summed up, yeah, 12th house is definitely like that other world. It's that imaginary world, your
yeah,
subconscious,
yeah,
anything subconscious
yes,
that's not
yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah.
The shadow side
It
of having,
brings in,
yeah,
and I mean, for a 3, it brings in intuition.
absolutely. And Pisces is
Yeah,
enormously creative.
right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
to
They
me, it's
tap into
like,
that side. Yeah,
yeah, be an
they really
artist,
do. Yeah.
even when you find people, if they have their sun sign and they have Neptune next to it, or they might have their moon sign and they might have Neptune to it, I find that's a very creative form of like that person.
Yeah.
Like they might be a Scorpio moon, but they've got Neptune next to it. It's a very creative person. In fact, I know people with that. Yeah.
And I suppose it's sort of, you know, we all channel, and
Yes.
you know, some people have an awareness of that more than
Yeah.
others. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think Pisces would be one of those
Yeah.
signs that have an awareness around channeling,
Yes.
you know, information and energy from their intuition or outside of themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So that sort of probably sums it up. So if anyone wants to
Yes.
get their numerology chart done by yourself, Larry, they can go to Think Act Focus, the website.
Think, Focus, Act. You'll get it
Think
right one
Focus
day.
Act. I always get that wrong. Think Focus Act.
Thank
So
you,
it's
Amanda.
thinkfocusact.com.au if someone's
Yeah.
overseas. So they could just go to that website. They can do a
Zoom.
actually fill it out, and and
Yeah.
then you can actually do a numerology, or you could do Reiki, because obviously you do Reiki as well. So something.
Yeah, if you're in Melbourne, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if they want their astrology chart done, it's mandarinastrologyforsuccess.com.au. Once again, in Australia.com.au. So reach out and we can sort of look at look at what planets you have where, and talk more about, you know, like you can get that sort of, rather than one note, get that whole perspective of what's going on. So yeah, well, thank you all for this series, Larry. I hope people get a lot out of
Terrific,
it.
Amanda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
All
sure
right.
we'll find other aspects to talk about.
We'll have some more things we'll come and talk about soon. Yeah, sounds good.
Yes.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.